All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a deeply fascinating philosophy that promises something pretty radical: the actual ability to change your life and find real happiness, right now, no waiting. It's a perspective that completely challenges a lot of the deeply ingrained assumptions we have about our personal history, our daily emotions, and how we relate to everyone around us. So it all starts with this incredibly provocative question. Think about this for a second. What if your past has absolutely zero control over your future? I mean, we are so incredibly used to the idea that our past, traumas, and our difficult experiences dictate our current reality, right? But what if that whole narrative is just a fiction we've bought into?
Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the myth of trauma. 2, manufacturing our emotions. 3, the interpersonal problem. 4, reframing feelings of inferiority. And 5, quitting the competition.
Yep, our source material for this explainer is the massive best-selling phenomenon, The Courage to be Disliked, by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. This book brilliantly distills the ideas of Alfred Adler. And if you didn't know, Adler is considered one of the 3 foundational giants of psychology, right up there with Freud and Jung. The book presents his complex theories through a really engaging dialogue between a philosopher and a highly skeptical young man.
Okay, Section 1, the myth of trauma.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to challenge a psychological truth that most of us just accept as a given. On one side, we have Freudian etiology. That's essentially the study of causation. It's the standard idea that who you are right now is simply an effect determined by your past experiences, cause and effect. But Adlerian psychology throws that out the window in favor of teleology. This is the idea that we aren't actually driven by past causes at all. Instead, we are pulled forward by our present goals. Adler boldly argues that trauma itself doesn't define us. It's actually the meaning we choose to give that trauma to serve a goal we have right now.
Moving on to Section 2, manufacturing our emotions.
So, if we aren't driven by our past, what on earth drives our immediate visceral reactions? Well, picture this. You're at a cafe, and a waiter accidentally spills coffee all over your brand new jacket. Instantly, you fly into a shouting rage. If someone asked you why, you'd probably say the anger just made you yell, right? Like it was a totally unavoidable impulse. But Adler says, no way. That is an illusion. You didn't yell because you got angry. You actually got angry so that you could yell. You literally manufactured that emotion of anger to use as a tool. It's a quick, intimidating weapon to make an unresisting waiter submit to your demands, completely bypassing the need for a calm, rational conversation.
There's this wild example of this in the text that hits the nail on the head. Imagine a mother screaming in a furious rage at her daughter, just losing it. Suddenly, the phone rings. She picks it up, and it's her daughter's homeroom teacher. In a split second, the mother's voice becomes wonderfully polite, totally pleasant. She chats amiably for 5 minutes, hangs up the phone, and immediately goes right back to screaming at her daughter. This proves that emotions aren't these uncontrollable forces that just overwhelm us. They're tools. We literally pull them out and put them away at a moment's notice to serve whatever our immediate interpersonal goal happens to be.
That brings us to Section 3, the interpersonal problem.
Now that we've seen how we manipulate emotions in our interactions, let's look at Adler's central thesis about the root of all human unhappiness. And he drops this absolute bombshell of a quote. To get rid of one's problems, all one can do is live in the universe all alone. He's basically arguing that internal worry just doesn't exist in a vacuum. Even something like loneliness. Loneliness isn't actually about being by yourself. It's the feeling of being excluded from the people in the society around you. Your worries about your bank account, your status, how you look, those only exist because there are other people around to cast shadows and create comparisons.
Let's do a quick thought experiment together to see exactly how we process reality through the lens of other people. Imagine you have a glass of well water and it is exactly 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that water warm or is it cold?
The answer, obviously, is that it depends entirely on whether you're drinking it in the blistering heat of the summer or the freezing cold of winter. Right? The 60-degree temperature is just an unchangeable objective fact. But how that water actually feels to you, that's a subjective interpretation. And you know what? This is exactly how we view our own perceived flaws when we hold ourselves up against other people.
Section 4, reframing feelings of inferiority.
So how do these subjective interpretations mess with our self-worth? Take the number 61. In the text, the philosopher talks about his own height, which happens to be 61 inches, basically just barely over 5 feet tall. And for years, he harbored this deep, painful sense of inferiority about it. But eventually it clicked.
He realized his 61-inch height was just a 60-degree glass of water. It was a completely objective fact, but his feeling of inferiority was a choice. It was subjective. So he just chose to reframe it. Instead of seeing his height as a fatal flaw that made him lesser than other men, he started viewing it as an advantage that naturally put other people at ease and made him approachable.
Now, this really clarifies a term we hear thrown around all the time, the inferiority complex. Adler points out that having normal feelings of inferiority is actually a good thing. It's super healthy. It's the launch pad that drives us to improve and grow. But an inferiority complex, that is an abnormal state. That happens when we take those completely normal feelings and use them as a permanent excuse to just throw our hands up and quit.
You can actually track the exact psychological progression of how this toxic complex forms. It's a trap. Step 1, you feel a lack compared to some ideal. Step 2, instead of putting in the work to improve, you lose the courage to take a step forward. So step 3, you blame your situation. You create this fake cause and effect narrative. You tell yourself, well, because I'm not highly educated, I just can't succeed. Or because I'm not conventionally attractive, I simply can't be loved. You're basically using the complex as a giant shield to avoid the really scary prospect of actually trying and potentially failing.
But wait, there is a flip side to this that is just as fascinating, the superiority complex. When someone absolutely cannot tolerate their deep feelings of inferiority, but they also completely lack the courage to genuinely improve, what do? They mask it by acting superior. So those people you know who are constantly boasting about their past glories, or obsessing over flaunting luxury brands, or weirdly even bragging about how uniquely miserable and unfortunate their lives are, yeah, they aren't actually confident. Not at all. They are indulging in a completely fabricated feeling of superiority to overcompensate for how incredibly inferior they truly feel on the inside.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Quitting the Competition.
All of this builds up to the ultimate solution for finding genuine, lasting self-worth. If you go through life viewing it as a ladder or a race, you are setting yourself up for just endless, crushing exhaustion. Because when life is a competition, there are always winners and losers. You're constantly comparing yourself to everybody else. And the saddest part, you can never truly celebrate your friend's success because their win instinctively feels like your loss. The whole world just becomes this terrifying, perilous place filled with enemies who are basically just waiting for you to stumble.
But Adler proposes this absolutely beautiful, liberating alternative. He says life is not a ladder. It's a flat, infinite space with no vertical axis whatsoever. Everyone is just walking equally on this giant, flat plane. Sure, we walk at different speeds, and yeah, we cover different distances. We are all profoundly different in our skills and our knowledge, but we are fundamentally equal as human beings. Your only valid comparison, the only one that matters, should be between who you are right now and your own ideal self. That's it. You are entirely free from the toxic need to win against anybody else.
So it all comes down to a choice that you can literally make today. You are not bound by your past traumas. Your emotional outbursts are just tools you can absolutely learn to control. And your feelings of inferiority, they're just subjective interpretations just waiting to be reframed. So I'll leave you with this. Do you have the courage to stop seeing others as enemies, step completely off that competitive ladder, and start actively choosing your own happiness right now? It is entirely up to you.